While we are awaiting Donald Trump's rally in Indiana, we are also getting closer to Trump's big announcement, his vice presidential pick. And near the top of that list, Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. Now, Flynn is the former director of the Defense Intelligence Agency and author of the brand new book, The Field of Fight. Just a short time ago, Lieutenant General Michael Flynn went on the record. General, nice to see you, sir.
Nice to see you. Thanks for having me, Greta.
And congratulations on the book, The Field of Fight.
It's a great book. It has a great message in it, and that was one of the reasons why we wrote this book, was to really have a powerful message about how we can win. And
it's a fascinating read. Before we get to that, though, I have a few questions to ask you about what's going on in the news. Secretary Hillary Clinton may be vetting retired Navy Admiral James Stavridis. Do you know him?
James Stavridis, I sure do. Yeah, he's a great guy, great officer, great friend, and former Supreme Allied Commander of Europe. So he's got some really great credentials as a warrior and as a military guy, and really as a sort of a big thinker too. He's a superb person.
Well, it's sort of interesting because we hear Donald Trump has his guy.
Generals,
he's got General Flynn,
and Hillary's got her admirals now. So I take it as a compliment. You know, I think it's a funny thing that we're in this mix, but I think it's because we have people, you know, like myself and like guys like Jim Stavridis and many others who care about this country.
Would you accept if asked by Donald Trump to be his vice president?
You know, at this point in time, Greta, I'm just deeply honored to even be in the discussion. For a kid from a little town in the smallest state in the Union, state of Rhode Island, to be in this conversation is just an incredible honor.
Now to your book. Could we beat ISIS?
Yes, we absolutely can, and that was one of the reasons. Well, because we have such a narrowly focused strategy that looks at actually very tactical actions instead of looking at a much greater effort to discredit the ideology, to go after in a much bigger way the initiative that ISIS and, frankly, the radical Islamist movement has actually gained on us. And I take that on in the book quite heavily, this component of the ideology and how we have to discredit this ideology. There are going to be military actions that we're going to have to take, but it's the ideology that we're going to have to go after.
Well, the way I read the book, to sort of cut to the chase a little bit, is that you compare President Obama to Jimmy Carter, President Carter.
Quite a bit.
And are they the same?
I think in some ways there's a disconnect between what we can actually do as a nation and the ideology. I think that there's a similarity in some of the ideological underpinnings of both Carter and Obama that we are seeing, and especially fighting, in this case, radical Islamism, whereas Jimmy Carter, you know, he sort of believed that that communism wasn't a problem until the very end of his tour as president, and then he suddenly realized, because of what was going on in Iran, what was happening, he made some other decisions that he had to make, similar to what President Obama is doing with this trickle effect of leaving our troops in Afghanistan and also adding, numbers into Iraq.
Well, you went after him for saying it was a huge blunder, I don't know what the exact term, for taking the troops out of Iraq.
In 2011.
What were his generals telling him?
Everyone was telling him, don't do this.
Why did he do it then?
It was a political decision that he had made, and it was based on his own political ideology and a political promise that he gave to his base, I guess, instead of looking at it from the national security, what was best for this country, what was best for our country. And I think it was a huge strategic mistake. And I describe it and then describe the consequences of it, but also how do we overcome that? Because we can still overcome this. This is not an enemy that's undefeatable, or this is an enemy that we can actually beat. Except that the enemy is a lot bigger now than it was then. Much bigger. And it's all over the planet. It's spread out. And I guess the thing the reason I asked was the general, were his military advisors telling him not to do it, because we're about to get a new president. And it seems to me that we need a president who's going to pay attention to his military advisors, or she's going to pay attention to his military advisors. We can't have them freelance, because apparently President Obama was the only one who thought that this was a good idea to pull the troops out of Iraq, like he did. And I think that what we have to have is a president who's willing to make what I would call the harder right decisions that are not based on political issues and political ideology. They're based on what's best for this country. What's the harder right decision to make for the future of our country in our own selfish self-interest, and I think that that's really important.